Hi, so welcome to week 4. And in this first video for week 4, we're going to talk about the genre of the abstract. So the abstract is a really common genre in academic writing and in a few other situations. Um, it's a brief summary of a larger research project. So it has a lot of different uses and can be used in many different ways. You're going to be using it as a proposal, which is a really normal way to use the abstract. When used as a proposal, it's often written before the project is complete. And so instead of telling the main point of the project as the claim is, it might say something like the hypothesis is. It can be used also as an executive summary at the beginning of a project. So in a proposal document, for instance, you may have quite a lot of material, but it might start with an abstract as a tool for the reader to quickly understand what's going on. Many published papers will start with their abstract so that readers can get a quick overview instead of having to read 20 pages to understand what the paper's about. And then they can go and read those 20 pages if they want to know more about it. It can be a means of indexing published materials. So when you do your research in the library databases, you're going to run into abstracts quite frequently. Most of the entries will have some kind of an abstract or summary attached to them. These abstracts are made as tools for you as a researcher so that you know what that item contains, even if you don't have access to that item yet, so you can know if it's something you need to request access for. Abstracts are also often used as first paragraphs or as other introductory material in the research paper. This is not always the case, so you can't just always say, okay, the abstract is the first paragraph. But many writers in many disciplines do prefer to use their abstracts as some kind of an introduction to their paper, since the abstract and the introduction often have a very similar function in that they say what you're going to say how you're going to say it, and they contextualize the project a little bit. So that's all, what the abstract is for. Now, what are some of these features of the abstract? So the abstract is typically one paragraph. So abstracts are brief. The maximum and the minimum length of your abstract is usually specified by the call for papers or the grant proposal call, or whatever. Something outside of the project to which the project is responding to. But generally they're 100 to 500 words, and most abstracts that I've encountered and counted the words on have been about 130 to 200 words. So you're really not writing a whole lot. It's just one full paragraph. Abstracts use a really formal and often technical style. So they're typically in third person, even when the paper itself might be in a discipline that accepts first person writing. And that's partly because they often appear apart from the paper, even though they directly reference the paper. So instead of saying, I hypothesize, they often say things like the author or this paper. But that depends on the discipline, so you'll want to pay attention to abstract examples within your own discipline as you start developing your style and your voice. Abstracts generally describe the research method for the overall project as clearly as possible. They tell the results. So a lot of times when people summarize their works, they're thinking of it in terms of the way that we think of like fictional works, where we don't want to reveal the end or the twist or whatever because that would be spoilers. That's not a thing in academic writing, so don't worry about spoilers. Your reader wants to know as quickly as possible what the main point is, and then they're going to continue reading to understand how you got to that point. Abstracts are always attached to some other project, although they are often exchanged and read independently of the project. They're always attached to that project because they are a summary of that project. Even if the project hasn't been completed yet, which often happens, because as I said, they're often used in proposal materials. And abstracts are typically submitted in the same manuscript style that the larger project will be completed in. So if you're using MLA style, you want to format your abstract like it were an MLA paper. If you're using Chicago style, you will use Chicago for your abstracts, so on. And finally, the abstract should include the title of the research. So you may have heard that many writers prefer to write their title after they finish the work because then they know what the thing's about and so they can write their title more accurately. And that is absolutely true. However, titles are used as ways of indexing materials, and so in research, we often have to decide on our title before we've completed the research, because when we submit paperwork to the IRB, for instance, that includes often, depending on the IRB, a title and an abstract. And the title is how they're going to keep track of that project while you're doing the project and overview it and make sure you're adhering to your ethical procedures. So your abstract should have a title, but that title should be the title of your bigger project. So your abstract has a descriptive title that tells me what your project is about. If you want to clarify between the abstract and the title of the project overall, then for the purposes of this assignment, you can write abstract : before you put the title. But other than that, just use the title that you expect to use on your paper. So in summary, abstracts, the values that are expressed in abstract, they have to be brief. They value people's time by being as to the point as possible. The function of the abstract is that you don't have to read a 20-page paper to get the main idea. They're complete. They value completeness. They don't hide anything. They're not teaser trailers. They're overviews. They're summaries. Think of them more like study notes than as a preview or something. They're study notes that you are preparing for your reader to help them better understand your text. It's kind of like at the end of a textbook chapter where you have that final summary that is meant to help you understand what the main points were. Only in this case, it's appearing before the paper. And they value objectivity. Even though they're attached to their situation and nothing's immune to the needs of its rhetorical situation, they're written in this really detached style that can often be even more formal than the paper itself. So as you're writing your abstract, you want to think about how you can make it sound very formal. In some cases, think about it like if you had read your project and you were summarizing it for someone else, how would you do that? So that's what the abstract is. So it's intimidating in that you have to have a good grasp of what you want to do. So for multi-draft writers, you might even want to do a little drafting of like your literature review before you write the abstract. For one draft writers, you probably want to have some kind of an outline before you write your abstract. But it's also not intimidating in that it's very short. It's very formulaic. It's, what is the problem that you're addressing? What is your hypothesis? What is your method? And maybe a little justification of that method. So it's pretty easy to find examples, and I will post several examples in the Going Further folder. So you'll have examples of both student work and published work for your abstract project. So that's all I have for this video. I'll see you later.